Hello and welcome to a tutorial on combining a doodly or a whiteboard video with some compositing software called Natron to give some more options to your videos. Okay, so we're going to be moving pretty quickly through a lot of these things. It's not a tutorial on how to use Doodly. It's not a tutorial on how to use Natron. It's more a process or a workflow on how we can achieve things. So let's fire up our Doodly, and we need to create our Doodly in a specific manner. Once you've created a new video, and we want a custom background, and we want it to be pure green, and this will help us when we're Chroma King a bit later on. We label our video, and now it's created. So for this, we're going to use a quill type asset, and we place it there. Now we want it for artistic reasons. We want it to take a little while for it to draw in. So we take a little while for it to draw in. Then what we need to do is we need to make sure that it just disappears, and we want to leave a little bit of time at the end of it. So we click apply. Next, we want to duplicate the scene, go into the second scene, and let's add some text. So let's write why not add a touch of class. Done. There we go. Okay, so let's scale it up a little bit, and what we want is to have it pretty close to the tip of the quill. So about there. Now, in our scene settings, we don't want to swipe left, and we want to give it a little bit of extra time for it to draw in. But the important thing here is we don't want a hand drawing it, because later on we will be getting the quill to draw it. Now we need to delete this quill, because in the second scene that quill is only used to position the text, and then we export. So whatever parameters you want, usually the highest quality, and 24 is what I go with, and export it. And next, we load up Natron. Links to getting Natron will be in the comments. Okay, so once Natron is loaded up, what we're going to do is we're going to read in that file that we just exported from Doodly. So we need to get a read node and bring that in there. Okay, so Natron uses nodes. So think of a node as just something which does something, really. So we have the read node, which reads in a file, and it is connected to a viewer node, as you can see. So nodes are connected by these little stringy things. So if I disconnect it, now there is nothing being sent to the viewer. Connect it back up. The viewer now gets its information from the read node. Okay, so let's leave it disconnected for the time being. Let's add another read node, and this time we're going to have the feather. So now let's just organize it. It's important to keep your nodes well organized, otherwise it can become a real mess. And what we want to do now is let us add a chroma key. Where's the key node? There we go, a chroma key node. So this is going to come in really handy later for getting rid of the green background. But we'll be doing that later. So now what we want to do is we want to combine these two nodes, and we do this using a merge node. So the merge node brings these two different sources together. Now you've got an A and a B. easiest way to remember it is B for background. So we want the background, and then A for above. So now when we connect this to our viewer, so we grab that and connect that node up, we can see that we have the background, which has got the smaller one, and the larger one is actually the feather SVG. Okay, so now it's a little bit large, so what we can do is we get ourselves a transform node, and we connect that to the feather image. And now what we can do is we will be using this transform node quite a bit throughout this. So if I have a look, it's a bit large, so we go over to the scale, and let's change the scale to about 1/3, so 0.3, and now we can grab the and we can scroll in with our mouse. There we go. Oh, and it should be noted that to bring up the nodes, I'm actually right clicking. Okay, so if we have a look here, I've scaled and positioned the node pretty well. So what we want to do now is we want to find out when the text first appears. So it looks like it's coming in at about 3:13, 3:12. So at 3:12 there's no text, and at 3:13 there is the beginnings of text. So what we want to do here is we want to have our feather node invisible up until the point where we need it to come in. So we set the starting time to frame number 313, and we want the first so if it's before the first frame, so before the 313, it'll be black. And why is this not working? Okay. Right, okay, let's change this. Let's change it to an error. So if it comes in before it's an error, which means it won't be processed. And let's have a look now. Yep, that's perfect. Okay, so what we're looking at, yep, so that's the background and that's the feather. Beautiful. So what we can do now is we find out we're going to set some some keyframes. So what we'll be doing is on the X position, we'll set a key. So this is the X value of the node or the image. And then we want to move along till it's finished writing out. Okay, so it's too far. So let's go back a little bit. And nearly there. Okay, so it looks like frame 347 is the last frame of the writing. So what we do is we move by grabbing the little center box there, and we move our quill horizontally to where we want it to end up. Now, we'll be worrying about the vertical movement later on, but for the time being, we're just going to worry about the horizontal movement. So by doing that, it'll interpolate all the motion of that quill. But as you can see, it's a little bit off. So what we can do when it's a bit off like this, we can just drag the quill to where we want it to be at that point in time, and just check to make sure. Oh, again, that one can go a little bit to the right. And a bit more. Excellent. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So again, we want it to go up and down, and we'll be doing that by setting an expression. Okay, so we go to set expression, and what we're going to do is to have it going up and down, we're going to use a sinusoidal movement, and we can do that by typing in this. So now this node refers to this transform one node, and the translate refers to the property, and get 0 is referring to the x, the x-axis positioning. So I'll go through this again in a minute, and then we need to add to shift it up a little bit on the y-axis. Okay, so if you have a look, yep, so the x, that value there refers to the x value. So it gets the x value and then applies a sinusoidal function to it. Okay, so now if we scroll through here, it's not looking very up and down there, is it? That's just looking decidedly not sinusoidal, and we've got an error here. So let's edit our expression, and yes, a bit of a typo there, so that should have been get. There we go, so click OK. There we go, it's already moved down. And if we have a look, so it's down and it's up. It's up, slowly moving down. It's right down now. Down, down, down. And then it should start to rise as we go forward. There we go, it's rising up there. Okay, so we've got this sinusoidal vertical movement, and that's being taken care of by that expression. So let's see, there we go. So let's get to the very last frame, and what we want to do now is let's animate an ending to it. So let's set a key for the rotation, set a key for the scaling. And what we want to do now is we want to go forward 12 frames. So you can always just, if you're not very good at maths, you can always just go plus 12, and that will then add it all up for you. And then we go typing and spin it around. And there we go. So when we go back, dear, that didn't work. Okay, let's do that again. So we'll get to the very end bit. And okay, so we'll go back to 0 rotation and 0.3 scaling. So we'll set that keyframe. Now we go ahead 12 frames. That's right, I must have pushed escape last time. And now we change the rotation to minus 90 degrees and change the scaling to 0, and this time it should work. So before I didn't actually move ahead those 12 frames, so that's why it didn't work. So now when we go back by frame, you can see that we have animated the quill to both scale and rotate, and that's a nice little way to have the quill disappear. Okay, there we go. So what we're going to do now is let's get down to Chroma King. So Chroma King is when you remove the green background. So go to the key node by double clicking on it. Now click on the black. Now hold Control and push the right mouse button, and we have basically removed the green background. It does have a little bit of outlining, and you can probably play around with a lot of the values there, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we're not going to worry about those values, but you could get a cleaner key by editing those. So what we want to do now is we want to add another, we want to merge, create another merge node, and we want to take the results of everything we've done so far, and we want that to be the foreground. So we're going to use A for adding, and then let's connect that to the viewer. So for the background, we are going to read in a picture, and the picture is going to be just some old parchmenty paper, and we'll connect this to the B input to our merge node. We grab that and pull that down there, and voila, there you go. So now this can be used with either images or videos, and this is a way that you can have animated backgrounds or even static backgrounds of an image that you want. So this is essentially how you chroma key videos or images. Okay, so we're nearly there. So pretty much all that's left now is to actually export it. So this is called writing the file out. So normally I would actually export this as an image sequence. So find out where we want to export it to, and let's create a directory called Quill. No, export. No, let's call export. Okay. So as I said, usually I would export this as a image sequence. You can do a lot more with an image sequence, I think. So I'd usually go choose PNG, because that way we've got an alpha channel. So you can see there's plenty of file formats to choose from here. Where's PNG? PNG, and then I would change just so every frame is its number. You just use the hash. So frame 0 would be 000, frame 1 would be 0001. Okay, and then you click save, and that would write out the image sequence. That's how I'd normally do it. That's the way I'd recommend doing it. But for the purpose of this, the simplest way to get a video out as quickly as possible is going to be to actually export it out instead of an image sequence as an actual video. So let's find out a video format. Now I don't actually do this. I don't usually export this out as a video. So let's see, what do we have? What looks familiar? Okay, H264 might work. Okay, so let's change this to Quill. Save that. And now we connect this up to our final node. There we go, click that in there. And so this will write out the video with these parameters here, hopefully. Okay, so to write it out, you go up to render, and you can render all writers with selected writer. We only have one writer here, and it didn't work, and that's because we are using the wrong container for the wrong codec. Okay. Alright, okie dokie. So let's take two. Let's go with let's try a more standard video codec containery type thing. So what do we have? Let's look for an MP4 or something like that. That should work on just about everything. Where are we? There we go. Okay, so same thing again. I've got to change this back to Quill. Click save. Okay, so hopefully this should work. If it doesn't work, we're going to be exporting it as an image sequence. So render all writers, and yes, bingo. So it's working now. As you can tell, my computer is very, very slow. So to render, 400 odd frames is going to take 16 minutes. So, but this will then render a video. There won't be any sound, but you can then add sound using your editor of choice. So I hope this has been informative, and hope you've learned something. Natron is really a really powerful piece of software. You can do a lot with it. So hopefully you found this interesting. If you have, do consider subscribing. There'll be plenty more tutorials to come. Look forward to seeing you soon.